right, are we live? I think we're live on Facebook. Being brave today, going live on Facebook. Being brave. Let me see this.
This is the Winning at Work and Home podcast with Damon Eddy, dedicated to helping individuals not only win at work, but more importantly, win at home and in life. Helping individuals define what true success looks like for them and helping them live that success daily, allowing more freedom to passionately love the people and enjoy the things that matter most in their life. Welcome to the Winning at Work and Home podcast with Damon Eddy.
Well, I appreciate you guys coming on again for the second time here. I haven't, like I told you last time, haven't done this podcast for a while, so super excited to get it going again. Decided to go live on Facebook this time while I'm recording it. So I told you last time I was a little nervous. Well, not a little nervous, really nervous to begin the podcast again and get it going. So, and I didn't want to go live on Facebook just in case it was a disaster. But I think it went okay. Podcast number 128. You know, and it's weird because I was doing so many of them, right? I started podcasting and then I was just doing them like every single day. So I got, used to it and I wouldn't get nervous, but for some reason I was nervous to start it back up again. So having the courage to go live today on Facebook is a good step in the right direction as I begin going here on these podcasts. The title of it, and I want to keep these somewhat short. I mean, 15 to 30 minutes would be ideal, I think, for these podcasts. Sometimes I have a tendency to jabber on and go on a little bit, but I wanted to, ideally this is the perfect thing for you guys to listen to on a commute. I know not as many of us are commuting now as, everything's going on with this staying at home and our home offices and things like that. But maybe something that you can listen to when you're taking a walk, or maybe something you can listen to when you're working out, or whatever it may be throughout the day in the background. I love podcasts, and it's just such an incredible way to continue to learn and to grow. And hopefully what you guys will do is you'll get something out of this podcast. You will get something every single episode. You will be able to take one little nugget, and that's really the goal, I think, of anything that we read or we learn or we take time every single day to at least pull something out of the day that we can apply to our life and make it a little bit better and make it where we can affect others in a positive way. So the title of this podcast, if you're watching live, and what I'll have on there is an excerpt from Matthew McConaughey's new book, Greenlight, which I just loved. For some reason, I know he promoted the heck out of that. I saw him on Gary Vee. I think I saw him on the Lewis Howes podcast, or listened to him on the Lewis Howes podcast, and a couple other ones as well. I can't remember. But just a really, really, really good book. What an interesting life Matthew McConaughey had. Seems from his writings and different things like that, just a really solid individual. And there was a certain excerpt in there that I really, really liked called Turn the Page. And I want to discuss that just a little bit. And also, if we have time, hit on scrolls 1 and 2 of The Greatest Salesman in the World, that wonderful little parable by Og Mandino. I put a post out, and I told you I was going to do this maybe last podcast, in which, how many people have read this classic, and really good response. A lot of people have read it once, twice, 3 times, haven't exited the bedstand. But I want to get to this excerpt from Matthew McConaughey's Greenlight. So it's a really cool little cover. If you're watching on Facebook Live, you can see it. But what stood out, and there's a lot of things that stood out in this book to me, but one of the things that I really, really liked incredibly, and I think it ties in nicely to the first scroll that we're going to talk about from Og's book. And this title is this little, it's cool how he did this book too. He has little, excerpts from his journal and things like that I guess he started journaling when he was 15 years old. But I really like this, and I'm going to read it to you. It's titled Turn the Page. And he says, the late and great University of Texas football coach. You know what? Hold on. I'm going to put on my reading glasses because I want to make sure I can see it correctly. So bear with me. Let me put on the reading glasses. He said, turn the page. The late and great University of Texas football coach Darrell Royal was a friend of mine and a good friend to many. A lot of people looked up to him. One was a musician who I'll call Larry. Larry was in the prime of his country music career, had #1 hits, and his life was rolling. He had picked up a habit of snorting the white stuff somewhere along the line, and at one particular party after a bathroom break, Larry strode up to his mentor, Darrell, and started telling Coach a story. Coach listened as always, and when Larry finished his story and was about to walk away, Coach Royal put a gentle hand on his shoulder and discreetly said, Larry, you got something on your nose there, bud. Larry immediately hurried to the bathroom mirror where he saw some white powder he hadn't cleaned off. He was ashamed, embarrassed, partly because he felt so disrespectful to Coach Royal, but mainly because he had obviously gotten too comfortable with the drug to even hide it as well as he should. Well, the next day, Larry went to Coach's house and rang the doorbell. Coach answered, and Larry said, Coach, I need to talk to you. Darrell welcomed him in. Larry confessed. He purged his sins to Coach. He told him how embarrassed he was and how he lost his way in the midst of all the fame and fortune. Toward the end of an hour, Larry, now in tears, asked Coach, what do you think I should do? Now, Coach, being a man of few words, said simply, Larry, I have never had any trouble turning the page in the book of my life. Larry got sober that day, and he has been for the last 46 years. What a story. I just love the simplicity of that. And I like how he writes at the end, Matthew McConaughey says, you ever get in a rut, stuck on the merry-go-round of a bad habit? I have. We are going to make mistakes, own them, make amends, and move on. Guilt and regret kill many a men before their time. Get off the ride. You are the author of the book of your life. Turn the page. And I thought that was such a powerful, powerful story. You know, turn the page. And he talks about Matthew McConaughey at the end that, you know, sometimes we get on this merry-go-round of a bad habit. We continue to do these things that we don't want to do. We continue to be in shame and guilt, and we don't move on. We don't move on. We get stuck in those habits. We get stuck in those bad things that seem to have a hold in our life. And I love in that particular case how Coach Royal, you know, said to him, he said, Larry, I never had a problem turning the page in the book of my life. And I think that is so powerful if you really, really, really think about that. You know, I think it's okay to continue, and I think it's good to learn from our past. I think it's great to learn from our mistakes. I think there's something powerful in that, and I don't think we should necessarily forget our past, because hopefully our past has taught us really, really good lessons, and we can learn from those lessons. Sometimes the idea of knowing that you never want to go back to that bad habit, that you never want to go back to that old life that you had, that you never want to go back there, that it was painful, right? And you don't want to experience that again. And when we're able to turn the page on those areas of our life and move forward towards better habits, better activities, a better life, a healthier life, a more clear life, it's just tremendous, which will take us very, very nicely, will segue us into this book that I discussed the other day, or talked about or said, and if you're watching on Facebook Live, you can see it, Og Mandino's The Greatest Salesman in the World. And I believe it was his first book that he wrote. He was the publisher and editor of Success Unlimited magazine, which later, I believe in the 90s, worked up Success Magazine, but just a great author. He was in the Speakers Hall of Fame, and this great little parable about 10 ancient scrolls of wisdom or success, and it's just a wonderful little book. I love those little books. I love it. Where they're about 100 pages, not too overwhelming for somebody like me to read, and it's story form, so it keeps you wanting to move forward and turn the next chapter. But he talks about these 10 ancient scrolls, and what I love about what we talked about today is scroll number one, here we go, is I will form good habits and become their slave. I will form good habits and become their slave. And really what and it's interesting because this scroll sometimes gets confused, and if you look at different things, because he doesn't get to I will form good habits and become their slave till a little bit into the chapter. But one of the first things he starts out saying is, today I begin a new life. Today I begin a new life. And if you look at the 10 ancient scrolls from the Greatest Salesman in the world, sometimes people have that as scroll number one, but it's actually I will form good habits and become their slave. But sometimes they get confused. But the great thing of why I feel this fits in with the excerpt that we read from Matthew McConaughey's book about turning the page is scroll number one, it talks about, and people get confused on, is today I begin a new life. And really that's what I feel that we're talking about, right? Turning the page, beginning a new life. The day sometimes that we say to ourselves that, you know what, enough is enough. I think I want to head in this new direction. And I love how, I think it was Jim Rohn that talked about ROHN, that, we're not geese, right? We're not geese. We don't have to head a certain direction. We can change route. You know what I'm saying? We can make the decision to move in a new direction. We can do that. We can decide. We have the power of choice. And that's what I really love about, scroll number one. That's what I really loved about Matthew McConaughey's little excerpt and turn the page. We can do that. We can move on. And I think it's wonderful that we're able to do that and we have the power to do that. And sometimes, or hopefully, that gives encouragement to you. If there's something that you're struggling with, something that you want to do, if you feel that you're not living up to your full potential, right? If you feel that there's things that you need to do in your spiritual life, in your marriage, in your business, in your health, that you can form good habits, okay? That our habits, really understanding what they talk about in the scroll, is our habits really determine our course. They really do. And what we do and how we do it, those habits that we do every single day, okay, we need to become slaves to them, as they talk about. We need to be able to become so consistent in doing those habits that they just become routine, right? That they get done. Very much like they always talk about brushing your teeth. You don't not brush your teeth in the morning. You don't not do that. You just go ahead and do that. Because, obviously you don't want to have stinky breath. It's a good habit that you formed over time and you want to get it done. So it's almost, if you don't want to have a stinky life, a not so good life, you have to form good habits. And I think that's incredibly, incredibly important. And he talks about how to leverage habits. He talks about how to, replace bad habits with good ones. If you have bad habits, pull those habits, take those habits out in your life and then begin to replace them with good habits. Okay? It's so important of doing that. So when he talks about that, becoming a slave to your habits, I think is extremely, extremely important. When you talk about turning the page in your life, what that coach talked about, that he's never had a problem turning the page in the book of his life, moving on. And I really like that. And it's not talking about ignoring it, but it's talking about turning the page, moving on, and progressing forward. So I want to think if I want to talk about anything else in regards to that. But scroll number one, I will form good habits and become their slaves. Today I begin a new life. All those different things is important. I want to hit scroll 2 because I'm only at 13 minutes, is rock and roll to scroll number 2. Scroll number 2, because I like to get through these. But this, again, from the greatest salesman in the world. If you got time, we're only 14 minutes in. So if you're listening to this on the treadmill or driving in the car on a commute, maybe you got a little bit of longer commute, and we can continue. But scroll number 2 from the greatest salesman in the world is greet each day with love in your heart. And I love this one. I do a webinar in which I talk about different things that you need to do in your life. And I always talk about, everything has to come from a place of love. You have to start with the mindset of loving others and serving others. And what Og talks about is greeting each day with love in your heart. Love is your greatest weapon. Love will soften hearts. What he talks about, I'm just going to read this real quick, is how to greet with love. Look on all things with love. Find the greatness in everything, good and bad. Everything has something to admire. Encourage, applaud, hold your tongue, praise. Don't criticize, don't tear down, don't gossip, don't think evil. Focus on the good and celebrate the good qualities of others. It's so important, okay? React to the actions of others with love. Use love as a shield as well as a weapon. Okay, he talks about loving yourself. Take care of your body, your mind, your soul, your heart. Keep your body clean and healthy. Keep mind clean and uplifted. And it's just amazing, guys. If we can really do that, if we can become that person that greets each day with love. Hi, Curtis. If we can greet each day with love, that's such a great way to do it. One of the things when that I would tell my real estate agents and my team at the office was, we need to go out there and be the nicest agents out there, right? We need to proceed with that. We need to do that, right? Yes, we need to serve our clients well. Yes, we need to help them get top dollar. Yes, we need to help them get under contracts in the home they want to buy. Yes, we need to be good and know our business and our profession. But we also, if we can go out there and be the most incredible individuals, that we care about people both inside and outside of real estate, that's really what is so important. So if you're going out there every single day, and scroll number 1, you're forming good habits, you're taking out your bad habits, and then you're going out and being that type of person that people want to be around, being that type of person that when people leave you, they're uplifted, they feel better, they feel good, right? You bring them energy, you bring them encouragement. They just feel better from being around you. That is the kind of life you want to live, and that's the kind of person that you want to be. So we will go ahead and end it there, guys. Thank you so much for listening to this podcast. I incredibly appreciate it. If you like it, please go ahead and spread the word. I heard what helps in podcasts if you give reviews. Like I said, I just started this up 2 days ago. I did 128, and I have a couple of reviews on there. I didn't even know that. I got so let me tell you a quick story. I got lucky. So I was hosting this podcast, and, I stopped doing it for 29 months. 29 months I did not do this podcast. So I went and I'm like, gosh, I wonder if I still have my account where I host this at Blueberry, which is a popular podcast hosting site. And I went there and I'm like, oh my gosh, all my previous podcasts are still there. And I haven't, I stopped, closed the account, I thought. So I called the guy up because I did the podcast, and I'm like, oh my gosh, man, I didn't even know he had that. He said, you know what? We had a software glitch, and people got lucky because, what happened, it was still continuing to hold on to their podcasts. Otherwise, it would have been gone. So all those previous podcasts that I'd done would have been gone, but luckily they were there. All I had to do was start payment again, start my, subscription with the hosting site, and they were still there. So I thought that was super cool. That worked out pretty well for me. So anyways, you guys have an amazing day. Thank you so much for watching this. Rate this podcast if you can. It should be all over. Share it. Just have an amazing day. Form some new habits today. Get rid of some other ones. Understand that you can turn the page, just like what they were talking about in Matthew McConaughey's book, Greenlight. Turn the page in your life, right? Turn the page. Don't necessarily forget it, but turn the page. Don't stay in those bad habits. Don't stay in that shameful or whatever type of mindset that you're in. Turn the page to the book of your life and move on, and then go out there and love others. So Thank you so much, guys, for watching this. Have an awesome, awesome day. Bye. See you guys.